All right, Nick Totiro here. We've talked about basic input, we've talked about variables, we've even talked about imports. Now it's time to talk about output. Very similar to basic input, if we think of in terms like in the Linux terms of standard output. Standard output just means it's coming back to the video screen or the display. In Python, we call it basic output. You know, Linux may call it standard output, but basically we're sending stuff to the screen. Now, in any programming language, we have a variety of ways that we can output information. Output it to the screen, output it to a database, output it to a file. This is just the simplest way, again, just for demonstration purposes, working in your lab. So let's take a look at my Python interpreter. All right, so I'm inside my Python interpreter, and let's do an area of a circle, right? We're not going to do so much of the input that was in a previous video, so let's take a look at finding the area of a circle. First of all, we're going to start with here. We're going to say shape equals circle. Okay. That's a string. Radius equals, well, we'll do 10. Right? Now pay attention here. I intentionally made the radius an integer, right? And then finally we have area. Now before we can do area, if you remember, area requires math, math.py or the importing the math library. So let's first import the math library. Now we can use all those extra math features. Remember, the area of a circle is pi r square. So we had to import math so we can use pi. We had to import math so we can use raising something to the power or something. So to speed up a little time, I have another screen on the side here. I'm going to do a quick copy and paste. And I'm going to paste area is equal to math pi times pi r square. And we write that in the Python world as math or radius raised to the power of 2. Now, let's do a real quick check on the different types, and that's going to be important in our discussion as we go through the basics of printing. So what's the type of shape? We see it's a string. Type of radius, we see that's an integer. And type of area, and that's a float. Let's print this stuff out. Well, you've already seen me do a couple prints through some of these videos. Let's break it down a little bit more. We can easily always just print the actual variable. If I say print shape, it'll show me circle. If I say print radius, it'll show me 10 as an integer. And if I say print area, it'll show me the equation or the result of the equation for finding the area. You notice that it's 12 decimal points, so it's 314, and then we have 12 decimal points after that. That's going to play a little bit of concern here. I could also print all the variables all at once. One of the more common approaches to printing a bunch of things is we can separate it by commas. So I can say print, and here we can say shape, comma, radius, comma, area. Close it off with a close paren, and we can see that it has a little bit of formatting here, just putting spaces in there, not really into a true formatting. Let's raise the complexity just a little bit. Let's say I want to put a literal in there, and to print a literal, I can say put it inside a double quote or a single quote. I'll do a quick demonstration on that. If I say, here is a shape. And you can see that it prints that literal. Now, sometimes people ask, and this is a very important question, when do you use a double quote versus a single quote? There's several variations, but for this demonstration, we usually say use a double quote when you are going to have a single quote within the literal, or vice versa. Use the single quote if you're going to have a double quote in the literal. For example, let me clear the screen, make it a little bit clearer. Don't worry about that command. I just kind of, first of all, I mistyped it. I just kind of put that in there before I started the video. So anyways, When to use a double quote versus a single quote? Well, let's say you needed a single quote actually in literal. We can say print, it's good. And you can see because I have a single quote here, this is when I would use a double quote on the outside to hold it in literal. So it prints it out. And vice versa. Let's say I was to use double quotes inside the literal. I would just start the literal with a single quote. Say print. Nick said, use double quotes. And then we close it off with a single quote. You see, so if single quote, but within that literal, we have our double quotes. And you notice that that's when we print it. So there's other reasons that we'd use single versus double, but that was a quick explanation. Let me clear the screen again. Now, let's talk about one of the simplest ways to format text. Let's say, for example, we want to string together those literals, the different variables. How can I do that to make it a little bit interesting to read? Well, a couple ways to do it. We're only going to talk about two of them in this video. One is to say print, and we'll use a form of string concatenation. So I'll do a double quote, the area of a space plus shape plus another literal with the radius of, we're going to concat, that's what the plus sign does, and we'll say radius, that's a variable, and we'll put another literal in there, and we will put the area variable. Now, I'll tell you right off the bat, this is going to fail. Right? I'm writing this on purpose because I want you to see what's going to happen after I type this. So I have a literal. I have the literal. I have a variable, concat with the pluses, another literal, concat with the pluses, variable, literal, variable. All right? Let's see what happens if I run this. And it's complaining here. It's a whole mess. It's saying I forgot things. I really didn't forget things. Basically, what happened was it got confused because this is a string, this is a string, this is a string, but this is an integer, and this is a float. You can't concatenate integers and floats together with strings, right? We were able to do it with the commas, but that really wasn't concatenation. So what I have to do is very similar to the input. I have to typecast those. I have to tell the interpreter, treat these as string values. And to do that, say print the area of a shape. The area plus shape. Shape is already a string. With the radius of, now here I have to typecast. I have to tell the interpreter, treat this integer value as a string. And I do that by str radius. Right? Again, that will tell the interpreter, treat radius, which is really an integer, keep it as an integer, but in this particular case, treat it as a string, and do the exact same thing with area. Make sure our open close parens all line up. Now if I hit enter, you can see that it took the area of the circle with the radius of 10. There was our integer. We typecast that to a string, and then we gave it the area. Again, it was a float. We typecast it as a string. Now, occasionally, you may see something in the textbook. This is a little cumbersome at times, and there's a lot more sophisticated ways that we could do formatting. And the textbook does kind of hint towards one where instead of concatenating the strings together, we can embed the variables into the string. So let me show you what I'm talking about with the textbook. So if I go to textbook, you might see something like this. They say, I'll put the floating point value of the area with 3 digits after the decimal point, which can be achieved by the following. And here's the print command. And what they would want you to do is basically use this print command. And you can see it has a little bit of features to it, F, and then it's kind of literal, and then these curly braces. Let me go back and demonstrate that in our interpreter. We would say print, still a print statement. Now we're going to tell it we're going to do some formatting. We tell the interpreter we're doing a formatting by hitting an F, and then we create the string or we create the sequence that we want. And we're going to say the area of a, now here we can embed or insert the variable. So I'll use a braces, shape, close braces, with the radius of, and again, we can embed the variable here, and I will say radius. You notice I don't have to typecast, right? Because if I'm just sending the variable, it doesn't really need to be typecast. The reason we had a typecast up here is because we were basically concatenating the string. Different procedure down here, right? Is, and then we're going to, again, braces, area. Now here we're going to get a little bit fancier. We're going to do some formatting. We don't want to see 12 digits after the decimal point. So what we would do here is say, okay, use the very area. All right, that makes sense. And we want, we'll say 3 decimal places. That's what this little decimal, give me 3 3 places after the decimal, format that. Let's close our braces. Let's close our quote. So we have, they're saying here, say format this entire beast, insert inside there these different variables. Let's close up our parens. And now if I run it, you can see that we did a little bit fancier. I encourage everybody to explore these different type of options. These embedded formatting into output, very powerful technique, a little bit more advanced, but it is something you may see with inside the textbook. Now, let's do this inside IDEs. First, we'll do it, obviously, we'll do it with the Replit IDE, and we'll do it with the zyBooks IDE. So I will go to the Replit IDE, and I'm going to say shape equals circle. And to save a little bit of time here, and we're going to say radius equals 10. And I kind of jumped the gun there, but save a little bit of time. I'm going to use my friend cut and paste. I'm going to cut from my other screen, paste it. So the area of a circle is equal to math, or, well, I better import the math. Right? Sometimes in the rush, I forget that you got to import the math if we're going to use any of these math functions. All right. And let's print this out. And again, to save some time, so I don't have to retype this information all the time, I'm going to just paste. So print in this method, I am following basically the string concatenation. If I'm going to do that, then I better make sure that I typecast this integer here. And then I typecast this integer here. Typecast this float here. And then the second method of printing will use the embedded method. I'm going to have 3 decimal points into the area. And if I say run, here is the difference, right? This is the first way where I'm doing concatenation. And then I got this 12 spaces after the decimal point. And this one is I did a little bit of formatting. Now, through the magic of cut and paste, let's take a look how to do it in our zyBooks. All right, the exact same thing. We have import math. Again, we got to pull in the math.py. We have to pull in math.pow. And then we find the area, we print it, and let's run this. And there is our displayed output, right? Going back to another area of the zyBooks. Again, if you ever see that, now you basically understand what they're talking about. In this particular interpretation, they're saying printf, the area of a triangle is, now where they're saying your value, this would be the integer that, I'm sorry, the variable that you created. If I was to do this, and you'll be doing this lab, you create the variable area, and then you would just basically replace your value with area. So don't do a direct cut and paste. You never want to do just a direct cut and paste unless you know what specifically what you're doing. This is actually looking for your value, which would be area. All right. These past few videos, they're kind of grouped together for a reason, because they're kind of the launching pad of Python. Python is a very extremely powerful language, and it's one of those things that can maybe take you half an hour and an hour to learn and really have not a mastery of it, but pretty good skill set associated with Python. But it's one of those things that takes about an hour to learn, and then the rest of your life to really explore. So these videos, these first few videos onto this website, basically should get you started with these assignments, and more importantly, get you started with Python in general. That being said, it's a great start. Let's go learn something.